All right. Stamp of approval, episode 2, the most scuffed podcast in the world. The absolute most scuffed podcast. So scuffed, I don't even have the lights set up correctly. That's more like it. And whereas the first episode was more of an introduction and more talking about my personal life, this one is just a lot of things that I've kind of been mulling over and considering talking about on the stream, but I really wanted to save because I didn't want to boil this down to just a 1 hour, just chatting segment. Then eventually we just kind of bleed into gameplay. So with that being said, something I heard about pretty much right after I finished recording the first episode, and something that I wished I would have talked about, is something called the red car theory. Has anybody ever heard of what the red car theory is? Or know what it is? Ever heard about it? Because I had never heard about it before I saw a video. So the red car theory, basically the way that it goes is, do you remember the last time you were outside, whether you were walking, driving, commuting to work? Well, if you can remember back to the last time you were outdoors around a bunch of cars, how many red cars did you see? And most people can't remember. And the theory goes that that's exactly how luck works. Now, the next day, of course, you're going to be paying attention and you're going to make sure to count it. But you weren't prepared for the question and you weren't prepared for the opportunity. You saw it too. See, Blockbuster John was ready. But the way that the theory goes is that's the same way that luck works. You have to be, there is some luck involved, but there's also a skill in finding opportunity. And just like you weren't looking for the red cars, you weren't aware enough of your surroundings to see that there might have been an opportunity right in front of you that you just drove right past or walked right past. And I thought that was really simplistic, but it's also really insightful because you could easily say the same thing about content creation or Twitch, especially YouTube. This guy named Ludwig, he doesn't need any introduction. He's massive. He made a video called, "I made a YouTube channel to prove that it's not luck." And basically what he did was he created a completely secret channel that nobody knew about. Nobody had any clue that it was him running this channel. And what he did was he went on Mizkif's stream and he waited for him to have run out of content while doing just chatting. So then he donated like $50 and was like, "Hey, check out this video." And immediately Mizkif is like, "Holy shit, this channel has like no subs and no views. What the hell?" And it was like a really well edited video that was talking about Mizkif's content. And basically from that boost alone, that channel basically got off the ground. And Mr. Beast has talked about this a lot too. YouTube is not luck. They've said this a million times. YouTube is your ability to find a niche, regardless of how cringe you might think it is. You have to commit to a niche and you have to be willing to pump out a ton of content that's going to fill whatever void is there. Now, there is a lot of content on YouTube. There's an insane amount of content. And basically every few months that goes by, it gets harder and harder to find that niche, but you never know when you're going to find it. And I was in a good friend of mine's stream the other day named Future Mute, who had made some kind of, Game Grumps style, like co-op couch commentary type gameplay videos back in around 2015 or so. And, he was kind of sad about it. He's like, I wish more people would have supported these and I didn't feel like they did very well, so I stopped doing it. And I was like, man, you gotta throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. There are YouTube channels that I've watched for years that got no views. But a good example is a channel called Greg Salazar. His channel used to be called Science Studio, but mainly he does a lot of PC stuff. He does PC builds, cleans fan PCs and stuff like that. Well, his channel was kind of plateauing around the 250,000 sub mark, which, don't get me wrong, is incredibly successful. But he was definitely a smaller player in terms of the PC space. But all of a sudden, he decided to do a video one day of him cleaning a viewer's really dirty gaming PC. And this video exploded. This video got over 1 million views. It was like his first over 1 million view video in like 4 or 5 years. And his channel, in like 1 year's time of him uploading the cleaning videos and also diagnosing and troubleshooting fan PCs, has gone up from 250,000 to 880,000. He's pushing 1 million subs now, all because he found a niche and he capitalized on it. He's selling all these brand deals. He's incredibly successful, quadruple the amount of income he used to be making, all because he tried something new. He experimented and he found what worked. Yeah, I watch him too. I love his content. So I feel like the same is true about Twitch. Hey, we're trying something new now. And the other thing that kills me is when you see somebody try something new and they only do it for a handful of weeks. They do it for 2 months and then they say, well, doesn't seem to be working out. No, you have to commit more time than that. It takes time, because the way that I watch content and the way that I know a lot of other people do is they'll find something. If it's labeled episode 1 and it's intriguing enough, they'll be compelled to watch episode 2. And then if you look in the sidebar and you see episode 3, you're like, shit, I got a whole playlist here. I love watching this. You never know. My video, the video called The Silent Hill Community Needs to Stop, was uploaded on a channel that has virtually nothing in terms of YouTube numbers. And by complete luck and complete chance, I was able to get up to 130 something thousand views on what I frankly feel is a shit video. And I'm not saying that to, fish for compliments or anything. I'm just saying it's a lazily edited video. It took me a single night to edit that. It has no fancy transitions. It's all default stuff. And it doesn't matter. Content is king. So, you have to try new things. You have to experiment. And you have to be willing, especially, if you're in a really small niche or you're trying to succeed within a small niche, you have to be willing to break out of your comfort zone and try something completely new. Because you never know. You could be the next Greg Salazar. You could be, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of niches out there. But, you could be the next No Jumper. You could be the next big podcast. You could be garnering so much interest in your content, but since you're not willing to give it a shot, you'll never know. Not to go completely cliche, but wasn't it a Wayne Gretzky quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Now everybody associates that with The Office, but that's neither here nor there. You have to at least give it a shot, is what I'm saying. And I have so many of my friends that are like, oh, I'd love to do streaming, but I tried that a few years ago and, nobody seemed to be interested. It's like, well, how long did you try? And usually they'll say, I streamed like a couple days a week for about 3 months. Not enough. Content creation, when you're getting into content creation, you can't think months. You need to think years. You need to think years. Mr. Beast has talked about this, and it's absolutely true. In reality, if you're trying to seriously take content creation forward, and especially if you're trying to make it a career venture, you need to be considering at least 3 straight months of dedicating as much time as you humanly possibly can. I get it. Most millennials, people my age, are a lot older now. They can't dedicate that much time to it. Totally understandable. But you have to be willing to set aside at least 3 straight months of full dedication. Now, I think if you're going to get into content creation, you should spend that 3 months working on YouTube, because YouTube's strength is discoverability. Twitch is awful at discoverability. If you are in a big category, like I am right now, if you're in the just chatting category and someone wants to find my stream, they're going to scroll until their fucking finger falls off. Okay? My stream is not going to be on the homepage. However, on YouTube, the algorithm may bless you and you may get a video like my fucking video did. I don't feel like it deserved it, but it got decent views. So YouTube is where you should go, and that's where you should dedicate your time. If you want to just start, get an Adobe Premiere subscription. Make sure your PC has enough hardware in it to, edit a video decently well, render it out. Just do 1080p. Don't worry about 4K, all that bullshit. Just do 1080p, 60 FPS videos. All you need is OBS, Adobe Premiere, and Audacity to record your narration. Give it a shot, because you never know what could happen. There's this mentality. It's like I feel like there's much more of a gatekeeper mentality on Twitch, where everybody's like, oh, they don't want to encourage other people to stream because, oh, that's my market share. That's my piece of the pie. I want it. But I feel like, don't say rendering. Yeah, you have a little bit of PTSD from rendering out my 14-hour streams. I'm sorry. But, I see that a lot. Like, someone will mention that they want to start streaming on another Twitch streamer's platform, and they're like, and they usually just won't engage with it, or they'll ignore it. I'm like, what are you doing? Come on, you can listen. And this is not me trying to be all holier than thou, but I'm just saying, it's okay to encourage other people to get into streaming. It's not like they're going to be stealing your spotlight, I think we should all encourage each other to at least give it a shot. If you think it's going to be a healthy outlet, what's the problem? But, that's just That's just kind of what I was thinking about when I heard about the red car theory. I was like, that's very true, and it does relate to content creation a lot, because there's so many people who they'll come up with an idea and they'll release it years later. Oh no, you didn't interrupt, Mag. You're fine. That's the point of doing it live. You know, people will do it years later, and then they've tapped into the market. But it's like they've had this idea for so long. And a lot of times the same thing happens with musicians or artists of any kind, actors. When a musician puts out an album and a song hits number one, almost inevitably they'll interview the artist and they'll say, "What? That was the one? I thought that was one of the weaker songs on the album." It happens all the time. It happened with Lil Uzi Vert with EXO Tour Life. He was like, "This is the one you guys liked? I thought this was mid," you know? So you never know. You might as well, look, it's okay to get constructive criticism from friends, people you trust, people that are going to be honest with you and not beat around the bush and bullshit you. Make sure that you're getting criticism from people that you can actually trust before you upload things. But barring that, just upload it. You never know. Maybe you could tap into some niche that people never knew existed, and they might fall in love with your content. And it is an amazing creative outlet. Yeah, it happened with Miley Cyrus too. It happens with a lot of artists. You hear it all the time. Katy Perry didn't think I Kissed a Girl was a good song. She was like afraid to record it or whatever. It happens all the time. So just put that shit out there. That's all I'm trying to say. Just put the shit out there. And if you're willing to work and you're willing to commit to an idea, because here's the thing. Nobody in the audience is going to take it seriously if you're not taking it seriously. This idea, this word podcast, I used to find it really cringe, but it's like, if you're going to do it, you need to commit. You need to take it seriously and you need to believe in the idea. So what's it going to do for me to call a podcast cringe when I'm actively, trying a new idea and something I find fun? It's not productive. Take it seriously. And what you'll find is people will feel that you're taking it seriously. They'll understand it and they'll vibe with it. Now, as far as what I was talking about just 2 weeks ago, and this comes down to other people that are also in my niche quitting or calling it quits and moving on. I'm not going to do that. I had a little bit of a negative day that day. We actually kind of talked about it on the stream where I was like, it kind of makes me wonder what I'm doing. Am I wasting my time? Should I call it quits? But I don't think I should. I've never been the type, and I don't recommend that you entertain or nurture any negative thoughts. A girl got famous on ASMR TikTok for her niche of picking fake bugs out of her fluffy windscreen. Yeah, I've seen some of the weirdest streams on TikTok that have a ton of viewers. Like the other day, I saw some girl that was popping popcorn with a hair straightener, and it had hundreds of viewers and people were donating. There are so many weird, unexplainable niches out there that you can make work. So you know what? You might think it's the weirdest shit ever. Just throw it out there. You never know what could happen. Son, we don't like quitters. Oh no. But yeah, I don't really feel like it's productive to nurture negative thoughts like that, because a lot of times, here's the thing. You'll put that in your head, and before you know it, you're thinking about it all day. Oh, I'm wasting my time. I shouldn't be doing this. Oh man, I should be further along, and this, that, and the other. If AI can break the minds of thousands of 9-year-olds, why can't you? Exactly. Why can't it be me? Let me bear the burden. Let me grab some water. Jesus, we're not even 20 minutes in. My voice is already cracking. But, there's a saying, and it's a really simple saying. I'm not somebody that like lives my life on these all philosophical fucking proverbs or anything like that, but something that I've always thought about, because it's 100% true, is you are what you think about all day. Because regardless of whether or not you think that it's actually hitting you or impacting your decision making, it is. If it's in the front of your brain and you're thinking about it all day, it's impacting your decision making. Maybe it's happening subconsciously, you don't even know. Or maybe, somebody offers you the chance to do something and you say, oh, I don't like, in terms of content creation, maybe somebody offers you a brand deal that's really great and could really help your channel. But you're in this negative headspace of, I don't know if I want to do that because this thing is probably not going to work out anyway. And before you know it, you're giving yourself all this defeatist bullshit in your head and you haven't even tried it. You haven't even given it a shot. So, whether you're positive or negative, or you have, aspirations to do anything, especially in terms of content creation, you're only going to get as far as you allow yourself to get. If you're telling yourself mentally that something's not going to work out or it's not going to be worthwhile for you to do it, you're not going to do it. Ultimately, you're going to know that you don't think it's the right decision. But if you just send it, you might find that, hey, that was a great decision. My channel grew, or this, that, and the other. People found my content through this and seemed to really enjoy it. You never know what could happen. So just don't nurture the negative thoughts. I know it's way easier fucking said than done, but the other thing that you really shouldn't do is, like my brother, don't hide from the truth. If you're bad at something, or if an idea that you have is just frankly bad, I want someone I trust to tell me. What's up, dude? No, you're fine. We just started. If say for example, my brother's acting, okay? My brother's acting is genuinely awful. It is terrible. It's nowhere near the quality that he thinks it is. Just a sec. So yeah, my brother's acting is nowhere near the quality that he thinks it is. He's in an absolute delusional, I don't even know what to call it. He's got a very delusional sense of reality about it. And I'm not going to show his acting reel. How could you do it? How could you tell me the truth after I told you to do it? He's in a very delusional state of mind where he thinks that his acting is good enough to be picked up for like a major role in a Hollywood movie, but the reality is it's not even good enough for local shit. But the problem is he'll ask you for feedback, and if you give him brutally honest, constructive criticism and feedback, he doesn't want it, and he'll consider you abusing him. Look, if I'm fucking up, if I'm making myself look like an idiot, and this happened recently, I'll tell you guys about it. I want someone to tell me. And the thing that someone told me I was being fucked up about was talking about other streamers. I had like a string of 2 or 3 weeks where all I wanted to do was talk about drama on the internet. And then someone told me, like, dude, you don't want to become one of those channels. Like, don't be one of those drama mongers where you talk about other streamers. And when I seriously sat down and thought about it, I was like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't be doing this. So I stopped. Simple as that. So now I will very rarely, if ever, actually name drop any other streamers. Just because I don't want to be, that type of content creator. It's not something I'm really interested in. Drama channels. Yeah, drama channels are a relic of the past. Oh, I'm in the wrong scene, by the way. Drama channels are definitely a relic of the past. And it's something that it feels like, these interactions between especially creators nowadays, it's almost like a race to the moral high ground, who can be the first to call the other person out and kind of take the victim card. Yeah, exactly. It's like, how is it going to be productive for someone to withhold the truth from me? If I get with someone and ask them if they think something is good or bad and they tell me it's bad, it's probably worth listening to their opinion if they think it's bad and seeing what can be improved. There's no value in just deluding yourself and just breaking through the criticism. Nope, I'm good. It's like, well, don't ask. Don't ask for anybody else's opinion if you're not ready to accept what they have to say. That should be common. This should be grade school common sense. Are you smarter than a 5th grader tier shit? And that doesn't even get into, once you actually start to make it, or once you actually start to become mildly successful in something, money is the ultimate validation. Once you start to get a little bit of money, you'll start to notice that people who you thought were humble, people who you thought, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with this in your personal life too, anybody that has come into some money, they'll change very quickly because money is the ultimate validation. If they go into a career, they start making decent money, they graduate with a degree, start making decent money, all of a sudden their friend groups change. They need to mingle with the people that are making about the same as them, and they need to be talking to people that are on their same level class-wise, and they need to be, because in their minds, they're in a different class now. They've broken through, they're successful, they're validated with money. And now this is not everybody, but just in a general sense, I've had a lot of friends do this. And, they're just off. They're in their own world now. And, the people that they hang out with depends on what career path they're going to take and what social circle they want to be a part of. Now, that kind of goes into one of the most major things I really wanted to talk about, speaking a little bit about American Psycho. That book focuses heavily on, we were talking a little bit before I actually started the podcast about American Psycho, the book, and that book focuses heavily on the nonsense, bullshit, brand obsessions that people have. We have fostered a society where brands are king, and there are people whose entire personality trait is based on what brands they buy, what they're willing to spend money on, and what they have. People will base their entire personalities on collections of things, and they'll make that their entire life's mission to collect everything in a certain niche, everything in a certain product type, everything in a line of products, and that becomes their entire life. There are people who do this with things like Jordans, the shoes. There are people who do this with all kinds of shoes, not just Jordans. There's people that do it with video games. There's people that do it with, gaming mice even. I've seen people, there's a subreddit about gaming mice where people have collections of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mice. Bro, you can only fucking use one at a time. Like, why? Exactly, yeah. Every variant of PS3 ever made. It's like, for what? And, I realize that it can feel a little bit hypocritical for anybody that lives in, modern luxury to say this, but I really hate this materialistic, hedonistic lifestyle that's pushed by all the big influential people, all the celebrities and all that bullshit. Influencer is just a fancy word for advertiser. That's all it is. All these girls on TikTok that are doing their little dances and pushing all these makeup products for you. All the people, all the basketball players that are doing sponsorships for like Mountain Dew and fucking all this unhealthy McDonald's. Like, there's NBA players who have personal chefs and eat extremely strict and clean diets, and they're out here doing fucking McDonald's ads to promote incredibly unhealthy, toxic, poisonous garbage for you to eat. It's fucking bizarro world. It doesn't make any sense. They don't live like that. They don't eat that stuff, and I guarantee they didn't eat it for the ad. I think people who don't want to get their shoes dirty are insane. Yeah, and the people that wear like the all white Air Force Ones or whatever, and they're like, oh, you can only wear those once or twice out and then they're finished, bro. You got to buy a new pair. Like, why? What is the point? Yay, capitalism. That's a lot more than that. It's, this gets into a whole other area that I really am kind of interested in, and I've been looking a lot into here lately, is how many times have you guys seen somebody, and this also started because a few months ago I saw this podcast with Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins talking about the way that the music industry is very predatory. And that just kind of led me to do a little bit more research into it. And a lot of times with younger bands especially, or younger artists in general, there's two types of deals that they'll get. One is called a 360 deal. And what a 360 deal is basically, we'll sign you, but if you get any brand deals, if you got like a fucking cologne or a perfume sponsor or anything, we get a big cut of it because we're the ones who put you within this platform to get it. And those deals are usually very short. They only last a few years. So you're giving up a large percentage of money up front for the clout, for the attention, for, all these things that are equally as important in this sort of social media era that we're in, where you have to have a literal 360 degree approach. You got to be on Instagram promoting products. You got to be on fucking Snapchat. You got to be on TikTok. You got to be on Facebook. You got to be everywhere promoting shit because the label says so, because a company contacted you and said so. And that's why, the visual representation of puppets exists. That's why so many music videos are about, oh, I'm a slave and I'm a puppet to the industry, because they are. The labels tell them what to do. They tell them how to act. They tell them where to go. They tell them what to eat. They tell them what to post. They tell them how to live their entire life. And the trade-off is, well, you have money. You're famous now. Is it everything you thought it would be? What's up, Siren? And the other thing that's fucked up about it is you hear so many celebrities, they're fucking miserable. These are some of the most miserable people you'll find. Michael Jordan, for example, the greatest basketball player of all time. It's either him or Kobe in my mind, okay? And this guy has a reputation for being a fucking asshole. He won't give you an autograph. He won't do all this stuff. But when you really sit down and think about it, it's understandable because this guy cannot go anywhere. He can't go to the grocery store. He can't go to the fucking local gym. He can't go anywhere because all that's going to happen is people swarm him and demand autographs, and they want a million different photos and flash bulbs going off everywhere. You can't fucking go anywhere. Jim Carrey's talked about this too. He's too recognizable. He can't just go to the grocery store. Michael Jackson was so fed up with it. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Michael Jackson was so fed up with it that he actually rented out a store, and he had some of his friends and family pretend to be strangers shopping in the store so he could have the experience of going to a grocery store. That's how bad it is. You're so isolated. So yeah, they've got big mansions and fully staffed mansions and stuff, but the public is basically off limits to them. They can only go to like award ceremonies. They can go on tour. But everywhere they go, they need security. They need to be basically shoved through. Like otherwise they would just be stopped for hours at a time signing autographs. It's not everything it's cracked up to be. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's a curse. And that's kind of what Tupac said. He famously said, you know, God tests you by giving you everything you asked for. And whether you're religious or not, the principle still applies. You know, you got what you asked for. Now you're famous. Now you're rich, but you can never live your private, comfortable life ever again. You gave that up when you signed this contract. So, you know, 360 deals are inherently pretty evil and very predatory because, you know, you've got these SoundCloud rappers, you've got these independent artists that are trying to make it. They'll do anything for a deal. And in some cases, it gets really disturbing. I'm not going to get into it, but let's just say some of them have admitted to some really crazy shit. Not just rappers either, rock musicians and all kinds of other people. People like Britney Spears have admitted to it. A lot of crazy stuff. They'll do anything for a contract. And, you know, in that desperation, they'll sign the paper knowing that it's a horrible deal for them. But hey, we're in the limelight now. We're going to be building followers on Instagram. We're going to be hitting a milli on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? Like they got all these followers and all this clout now. So such that even if the deal falls through, they should still be able to fall back on all this attention that they've gotten now and hopefully keep this going in case something like that happens. There was even something like that on YouTube a few years back called Team 10, which was Jake Paul's like friend group. And Jake Paul's friend group were people like Chance Sutton, Tessa Brooks, you know, those types of people, those two twins, the Spanish twins. I forget if they were Spanish or Mexican, but basically all of them were on 360 deals. So they would shoot content with Jake Paul, but when their deal was over, they were fucking out and they had to figure it out on their own. And it's like Tessa Brooks is still around, but where the fuck is like Chance Sutton? Where's that British guy, Nick Crompton, whatever his name? Where are they? They're completely, they disappeared off social media. They just went dark. Like, where the fuck are they at? Tessa Brooks still posts stuff with, you know, some regularity, but for the most part, that whole group is like dissolved. Jake Paul's doing his boxing shit now. It's like, who knows where everybody else is? So the other thing that happens, and this was something Billy Corgan talked about with Smashing Pumpkins, is you will essentially be approached when you're very young, meaning usually, you know, around when you're 18, and the record labels will offer you something like a fucking 20-year deal. They want 20 years and like 5-6 albums. They've just met you, by the way. They don't even know if you're a decent songwriter. You got a couple hits here and there, you know, you're making some traction in the indie market and you got a couple of singles out there that are doing pretty well. But 20 years, 6 albums? That Radiohead got a deal like that too with EMI. It was like a 15 or 17 year 5-album deal. And the reason why they do that is very simple, because they want to anticipate basically your whole creative arc. Because, you know, once you're starting to push 40, that's usually when your creative juices, you know, based on their calculations and a bunch of other bullshit that they've done the math on, that's basically when, yeah, your best years are behind you. That's what they're banking on. And you know what happens when you run out of songs? I've got zeros in here, by the way, my cat. You know what happens, by the way, when you run out of songs? They'll say, oh, that's okay. We got ghostwriters. We'll hook you up, dude. They'll get their writers in. And then if you can't come up with a catchy melody, oh, it's okay. We got songwriters. We'll bring them in. You know, we got people that can play any instrument you need. They'll bring them in. Every subsequent person they bring in takes a bigger cut. And so as you lose your creative juices, the studio walks all their personnel in and they start to take a cut every single time that happens. And there's stories of this happening constantly. Like, you guys know the group TLC? They have a story about this where they put out an album, it sold millions, but by the time all the studio fees and all the personnel fees were paid, they walked away with like 50,000 each. I mean, just because your album sells millions, that doesn't mean you as an artist are rich. In fact, most of the time it means the exact opposite. It means only the label got rich. And you'll see, 50,000, which, for people that are selling millions of records and touring the world, that's not the type of money you would think they'd be making. And that's like it. They get a flat fee. That's all they get. They get a tiny percentage of a percentage. By the time all the money's divvied up and the studio takes their cut, a very small percentage do they end up with. And then quality goes way down and the fans pretend not to realize it. Actually, most of the time what happens is they say, what the fuck? I miss the old whatever, artist it happens to be. Like, what happened to the way you guys used to write music? What changed? And then, of course, they're contractually obligated not to say anything about it. And they're like, oh, we've evolved as artists, or I've evolved as an artist, and nobody likes it because they like the way they used to write. And it just doesn't work. But the studio's got you for, another 7 years. So whether you like it or not, you signed the contract and you're in it for those additional 5 years. There's no way out. They consider every single loophole that could even be remotely attributed. And they make sure to remove every variable so that when you sign that contract, you are theirs and there's no way out of it. A band called A Day to Remember got into a big lawsuit with Victory Records because they had released 3 albums and then they released like 4 or 5 other albums. And the studio was trying to say, no, you didn't put out your 4th album yet. You still owe us an album. So they wouldn't release them from their contract. And so they had to go to court. They had to go to all this fucking lengthy, expensive court dates and lawyer fees and all this bullshit to basically fight Victory Records and say, no, one of these live albums that we put out, one of these compilations, this counts as a full album. And so the judge agreed with them that at least one of those did count. And he eventually he granted whatever their summary judgment or whatever it happened to be. And they were able to get released from Victory Records. But they will fight tooth and nail to keep you on their roster because they know that you're the moneymaker at the end of the day. Some people miss your old stuff even if they're still good, but those are just hipsters. Oh, for sure, yeah. But the bands that are actually successful in that time, they're fucking anomalies, man. How many Radioheads in the world are there where they can put out 5, 6, 7, 8 albums and every one of them can be worthwhile and actually decent? That's not common. That's really rare, actually. What was the defense? So basically, Victory Records was claiming that they had not put out an original album. They had only put out like live albums and compilations and B-sides. So they had basically released all the previously unreleased material and then a couple of live albums. And Victory Records was arguing that that didn't count as an entirely original album. Even Tool has kind of lost it, TBH, at least in my opinion. Yeah, like, it's so incredibly rare for a band to be able to sustain even 10 years of success. Like, it's so rare. It's unbelievable. People don't understand, like, Green Day is a fucking anomaly. When they were recording American Idiot, they thought it was over. Billy has famously said in the beginning of those recording sessions, he's like, I don't have another fucking song in me. Like, I can't get this album done. This ain't gonna work. And then by the time the album was done, they thought it was bad. They thought it was mid. They put the shit out. It's their best-selling album ever. And it's full of songs that people still request to this day and has basically allowed them to have another 15, 20 years of a career. You never know what's going to do it. But that's the thing, is these predatory-ass practices by the studios. And it's not just music. The movie industry is just as bad. You guys seriously think that Harvey Weinstein was the only guy in Hollywood that was having big female leads sleep with him for movie roles? No, he's just the tip of the iceberg. He's just the fall guy. There's many other people in Hollywood doing it. A lot of them have been named, but there's a lot of other people in Hollywood that were doing it. He was just a fall guy. So that everybody could look and say, oh my God, I can't believe. Exactly. He's the one that got caught. But Hollywood is known for that shit. Fear Inoculum was just very laid back. It's understandable too. It's hard to keep passion for it going that long, and you can hear it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just lacking that drive and soul that was there before. Yeah, and what's that famous saying about before you make your first million, that's when you put out your best stuff? Because like I said, money is the ultimate validation. Why would you continue striving to succeed when you're already a millionaire? Once you've reached that benchmark, you're already validated. You've lost your hunger and your drive to create something that's actually game-changing. We see it all the fucking time, even in the video game industry. What is the third console curse? Why does it exist? Because there was a successful console prior, they had nothing left to prove, and they just wanted to throw shit at the wall and see what stuck. The N64 fucked up because it didn't go with CDs. It went with cartridges. That was a really bad decision because the third-party developers all ran over to the PlayStation. The PS3 was a bitch to develop for. It lost mightily to the 360 in the beginning. It was way too expensive. Features nobody cared about, like an SD card reader. And being able to install fucking Linux. Like, why even bother? They did eventually pull it back, and then of course Xbox, with the Xbox One, the 360 was wildly successful, and so was the Kinect, as shit as it was. And so they decided to release a more expensive and even shittier version of the Kinect that nobody wanted or used ever. And by the way, there's a former Microsoft employee on YouTube who has claimed that all the, accusations of Microsoft spying on people are not too far from the truth. Not going to say too much more about that, but you can look it up. Trust me, it's out there. Apparently, they were recording a lot of voices, and they were hiring third-party people to scrub through the voices for some reason that they've never specified. And of course, they won't comment on. So anyways, now, when I was talking about not just the music industry, there's also, you guys know the Simon Cowell shows, America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, American Idol. These are all created by Simon Cowell's production company, which is called SICO Productions, SICO Productions. And interestingly enough, the contracts for America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent both leaked within the past couple of years. And a lot of people used to think that unless you make it to the finale, like one of the final two shows, they're not really entitled to anything creative that's yours. That's not true. We found out when the contracts got leaked that if you make it past the audition phase, your entire life and every creative endeavor you will ever release on any platform worldwide is going to be owned by Simon Cowell at the end of the day and his production company. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you do. If you make it past the auditions and you sign that contract, Simon Cowell owns you for the entirety of your life. You ever wonder where like the Britain's Got Talent winners from 2008, 9, 10, like where are these people? They're just gone. Who knows, but they can't release their own stuff. You would think like, oh, these guys are so talented, they didn't win. Why aren't they on YouTube? Why aren't they doing their own stuff? Because they can't. They are not legally obligated to do it, and any money that they make goes, the biggest percentage of it goes straight to Simon Cowell. For some reason, Meta spies on you through Facebook and Oculus systems for your benefit. Go into your Facebook app right now. There's a part in the settings. I don't know if it's still available, but I had to do this. There's a part in Facebook called related apps or like linked or connected apps. And Facebook was connected to and collecting data from my fucking mobile banking app, from my security camera app. When my roommate Tusk had a security camera, it was connected to and collecting data from my mobile banking app, like basically all my Outlook email that had my previous work. Like it was everything that was extremely personal and important. It was connected to it and it was collecting data. And you had to go dig through all these privacy settings just to decouple it from those apps. Like, why does it even have access in the slightest? I was never given a toggle. I never accepted it. I would have declined this shit in a second if I knew. And that gets us exactly what you just said, Snipple. When it comes to big tech, you're the product. The products you're buying are just the tools for distribution. This trend of smart speakers, I fucking hate it. These OK Google devices and fucking Alexa and all these different things. Why are we willfully putting things in our house that are going to listen to every word we say, when we have all the circumstantial and anecdotal evidence in the world to prove that these companies are listening and advertising to us based on what our phone microphones hear? Some people are out there still saying that it's a conspiracy theory. Okay. I don't buy that for a fucking second. There's video footage of an older couple. They wiped their phones, completely wiped. I mean, removed the iCloud profiles, factory reset, everything you could theoretically do to reset a phone to a state that someone had just unboxed it and it's brand new. And they sign in, they go to the main Apple home screen, and they start talking about cat food. So they're just on, let me see here. Yeah, so they're just on this screen. They're just on the Apple home screen. And they start talking about cat food. Just, obviously mentioning certain brands. And then they weren't even signed into their Facebook. They sign into a Facebook account, and what is the first fucking ad they see but for a bag of cat food? Completely unedited, all on video. And that's only one example. There's 1,000,001 other examples. I've had plenty in my own life that have happened. I'm sure you guys have had that too, where you've never Googled something. You've never searched for it on any platform on your phone. You've never searched for it on your computer, but you had a conversation about it. And the next thing you know, you're getting targeted advertisements about it. Well, that's just one example, Mag, but I haven't even logged into Facebook in over 10 years. When it comes to online services, I self-host everything I possibly can. Highly recommend. Exactly, and you have to. They're connected to the Oculus lenses and trackers, which allows it to see your interior house. See, that's what people were worried about with the Kinect shit. They're going on about how high quality it can scan, everybody's face, and it has your facial structure, and you can unlock your Xbox with it. I don't want that shit in my home. I don't want it. I don't want to fucking use it. Nobody wanted that piece of shit. And so they basically had to roll it back and make it to where it was useless, and then nobody cared about Kinect, and they eventually just took it out of the box because it was dead. As a product, it was 100% dead. Related to smart devices, I'm running my own router/firewall, and I can see all the calls to home that these devices make and the amount of data they transfer, and it's a lot more than what is required to serve their marketed purpose. Absolutely. Because the reality is, buried deep in those terms of service, again, these are very, very intelligent, very powerful people that are making these terms of service contracts that you agree to. What are you going to do if you're setting up your new iPhone 14, iPhone 15, whatever it happens to be? What are you going to do? Disagree? Well, you can't go any further. You can't use your phone. Of course you're going to fucking agree. They're revamping these terms of service all the time, and there could be some shit in there that you're just agreeing to because it's like, let me just get to my phone. I just want to use my phone. But it's like, it's kind of crazy that Apple has a database of tens, if not hundreds of millions of people's faces somewhere that data is stored. And if somebody, I get that they spend probably billions of dollars on security. But if by some miracle someone was able to hack into their database of faces, can you imagine what that would look like? That would be fucking insanity. And fingerprints too. Basically the way that worked is they took your fingerprint and it just turned it into a whole bunch of encrypted code. But they still have it on file. You can still purchase the iPhone SE, which I believe has a fingerprint reader today. So they're still keeping all those things on file and giving me ideas. Yeah, don't hack into Apple. It probably won't end well. Speaking of, wasn't there an Insomniac Games leak very recently? Another gaming company got hacked, just like Rockstar got hacked a few months ago. And they had to officially address the leak. Yeah, there was a ton of stuff that got leaked from Insomniac Games. Like their business dealings with Disney got leaked and all kinds of financial info. It's actually really fucked up. Like basically the whole company got, info dumped. Ransomware for 2 million. Jesus Christ, man. It's fucking crazy. I mean, just a couple years ago, my old company used to use this app called Kronos for time tracking. And Kronos, at my last job, got completely hacked and it got ransomware. Like, what a weird target to go after as a timekeeping website. I guess it's not that weird because I think a bunch of Fortune 500 companies use it, but still. They leaked the roadmap all the way up to 2036 or something crazy like that. Holy shit. They even openly go as far as to see what devices are in close proximity to your devices frequently in order to target ads toward the group. Weirdest thing is the company didn't pay the ransomware threat. Oh, did they just deal with it? Like, were they able to reverse it or something? I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that Sony hack in 2011 where, they basically they couldn't do anything about it. So all their services were down for a little over 30 days. That was crazy. That 2011 Sony hack was nuts. Like, I got a letter in the mail talking about a class action lawsuit and how I was entitled to money because of that, because my information could have been compromised. Definitely the biggest gaming related hack I think I've ever seen. And they were so ashamed of it. Like, Kaz Hirai and a few other guys that were bigwigs at Sony at the time, they did a press conference where they just bowed and apologized, and they just kept their heads down for so long. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, this is like a disaster. A PR fucking nightmare. They recovered, obviously, but holy shit. What a nightmare that must have been. So yeah, basically, kind of what I was talking about before we got into the whole gaming conversation, just about the entertainment industry. And again, this sounds very cliche, but the whole be careful what you wish for is very applicable, and it's very true. You might watch TV and you might see all these celebrities and you might think that it would be awesome to live like them, but the reality is most of them are fucking miserable. They have all the money they've ever wanted. They've indulged in every whim. They don't have any dreams. They've already done all that shit. And where do they usually go? They usually turn to drugs. When you've had all the fanciest wine in the world and you've eaten the best food in the world and you've traveled to all the greatest countries and all the big tourism spots, and you've done everything there is to do as far as luxury and indulgence and hedonism and all these different things, what's left except for drugs? There's nothing left. You've done everything, and you've done everything as far as sex. So you're bored of sex. You're bored of sex. You're bored of food. You're bored of wine. You're bored of all the indulgence in the world that there is to offer. And you turn to drugs because it's the only thing left that gives you a new feeling that you've never experienced before, This might sound crazy, but I feel like, in a way, being in a situation where you don't have so much disposable income keeps you sane. It keeps you on the straight and narrow because you have to focus on your goals. You have to focus on supporting your family, your immediate family, sometimes your friends. And you can't do that if you're on drugs. You can't do that if you're drunk constantly. Now, some people try. Some people try to be functional while they're on both, but it usually doesn't end well. It's very rare that somebody's able to do that. And even if they are able to do it, it's only a matter of time before it all falls apart. So, being not destitute, of course, not paycheck to paycheck per se, but, being in a situation where you don't have so much disposable income that you can just have everything keeps you sane because you actually have things to look forward to. You have realistic goals to work toward, and you're not desperately searching for something new and fun every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Life needs contrast. You need the downs to put emphasis on the ups. Absolutely, yes. Worst thing is people sometimes don't turn to drugs. They have it shoved into the spotlight by friends and producers and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. Corey Feldman talked about that, where he never liked cocaine, but he was basically forced to get into cocaine because it was the cool thing to do, and he couldn't stay awake because they were having him do like 18, 19, 20-hour days on movie sets, and he just couldn't sleep because there was so much stress. It was basically like slave labor back then. They got paid very little money, and they had to be on set for crazy amounts of time, and so he turned to cocaine because it was the only way he could stay awake. And one of the scenes that he talked about is in The Lost Boys, where they're in the comic book store, and he basically meets Corey Haim's character for the first time. That was a scene where he was like, I was coked out of my mind. I could barely keep my head straight in that scene. And the director had to keep stopping and stopping, like, what's wrong with you, kid? Are you good? What the hell's wrong with you? And he was like, it was everything I could do to even get past that basic scene with very little dialogue, because he was awake for 22 hours. He was coked up. It's fucking crazy, man. He didn't even choose that. So it like you said, it could be pressure, societal pressure, peer pressure of the industry, what's cool to do, what's not cool to do. A lot of rock musicians turn to drugs because honestly, the touring life is fucking miserable. You're on your bus, and then sometimes you stop at a restaurant and eat, and then you're back on the bus. You don't know when you're going to be able to take your next shower. You don't know when you're going to be able to wear some clean fucking clothes. It's fucking miserable, man. And it can be miserable depending on how you do it. Now, once you really start to make it, of course, the luxury comes in because, you know, they've got buses now with fucking hotspots and they've got buses with every amenity you could possibly need and you're good to go. But, you know, if you're not a big successful band and, you know, 20, 30 years ago, these things weren't available. So, you know, touring would also turn people to drugs because it's fucking miserable. You're not at home. You have no sense of your own space. You're just always on somebody else's schedule. You got to be here. You got to wake up. You got to shower. You got to be ready for the show. You got to get all your equipment. You got to do your sound check and all that bullshit. It's fucking miserable. And some people really can't handle it. Totally understandable. The only time I've been surprised about that type of stuff is with the comedian John Mulaney, who was always coked out of his mind in his specials. At the time, I didn't recognize it, but it makes so much sense in retrospect. Absolutely. The same thing about pro skaters. A lot of pro skaters were on coke as well. And we couldn't tell at the time, but a lot of them say things like, oh, well, the coke helps me not feel so much pain and I can skate all day and it just puts me on cloud nine and the high is just so amazing and I feel like I can take over the world. And, you know, doing cocaine and also doing cardio, I don't know how their hearts didn't just fucking explode because cocaine is like, what, 6, 7, 8 times the strength of a cup of coffee? It's unbelievable what it does to your heart and your heart rate. Yeah, tour life is fucking miserable. There's a really famous interview a few years ago of Ace Frehley from Kiss when they did their big reunion tour in like the year 2000. And he talked about it. He looks fucking defeated. He's like, you know, everybody thinks the life of the rock star is like this glamorous life. He's like, every fucking second of my day, I got somebody calling me saying, hey, you got to be here. You got to be there. You got to be here. Are you ready? Are you practiced? Are you ready? Did you get your makeup on? Did you take your shower? Do all this shit? He's like, it's fucking miserable. It's horrible. And I'm only doing this as kind of like a, you know, a final goodbye. And I'm done after this. Like I can't continue doing this through the rest of my 40s. And it's just crazy too, because, you know, when the bigger of an artist you are, the more often you got to be out. You got a worldwide tour, you know, 2 years of your life. Imagine looking at a sheet that has all of your tour dates and you just see the next 2 years of your life. Imagine you're kind of like my age, about to be 29, and you're like, damn, so my 20s are going to end and the beginning of my 30s are all going to be spent on this worldwide tour. Like we barely get a few weeks off a year. We're just going to be in the bus all over the world. That's a fucking crazy prospect, and it's not easy for everybody to adjust to that. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons why they turn to drugs, but a lot of it comes down to they've indulged in every whim, like I said. They've done everything they've ever wanted to do. They've been pressured by their peers or other people they know to get into drugs. It's the cool thing to do, so they want to be in the cool kids, you know, whatever the fuck it happens to be. But it's not a glamorous life being a celebrity. People have got to stop with this pipe dream. And even when it comes to social media, you know, if you get big enough as a content creator, even then you're going to start getting noticed when you're in public, and it's not going to be easy for you to just live a standard life anymore. Most people spend like a month max on vacation. Years in places you can't call home sounds like fucking torture. Exactly, man. In and out of hotel rooms. You got fucking crazed fans trying to meet you everywhere you go. Everybody wants an autograph. Like, I get like, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of accounts of, oh, I met this band and they were fucking assholes. It's like, yeah, well, they're probably on like the fucking 7th straight month of touring and they don't want to sign an autograph right now. I read Jeanette McCurdy's autobiography a few months ago. Goddamn, it made fame/acting seem like a literal curse. It was a hard book to read. Oh, the one where she said, I don't care that my mom died, as the title. Exactly. It's not at all what it's cracked up to be. And, you know, we're fed this lie of, oh, if you get big enough, you can eat at the best restaurants, you can sip the greatest wine, and you can do all these things. But it's like, what then? You know? You guys ever see Scarface? Like, he conquers organized crime in Florida. He conquers that shit. He's at the very top. He's basically got a big fucking throne at his desk. But he's done everything. He finished. There's nothing else to do. So all he gets to do now is sit around, get coked up, go to the restaurants and look dead inside because there's nothing left to do. And he's so paranoid because he had to fuck so many people over to get where he was that he has security monitors everywhere. He hates his life. Like if someone was like, hey, Dr. Red, sign this, I would be like, hey, no problem, let's go. 6 quintillionth person shows up saying the same thing. I would barely be able to pretend like I don't want to nuke the earth. Seriously, man. The shit she had to deal with in and out of her body through, though, to stay skinny and pretty. Exactly. And you know, I feel the same way about like child beauty pageants. I think they're fucking disgusting. They're completely pointless. And in a lot of ways, it's very obvious. You can see like the moms are trying to live vicariously through their daughters. Like, why are you having your daughter put on a bunch of fucking makeup and wearing like Daisy Dukes? She's like 5 years old. This shit is just fucking weird. Toddlers in Tiaras. You guys remember that show? TLC is one of the worst channels for just exploitative bullshit TV. Yeah, Dan Schneider is a great example, and that directly ties into Jeanette McCurdy, Miranda Cosgrove, Jamie Lynn Spears, Victoria Justice, all those people. The biggest breakthrough I had when seeing the acting/performing industry's awfulness was the idol industry. You have a few years of your life. You have to commit only to your job, your image, your present instead of your future. It's horrifyingly life-consuming. Yeah, K-pop idols are the same way, Japanese idols. They are never allowed to eat what they want. They have to be on incredibly strict diets, and most times they're just straight up not allowed to eat. There have been videos of K-pop stars collapsing on stage because they've eaten nothing, and they're told to go out and perform, and all they get is water. It's like, you can't fucking expect they're not robots. They need proper fuel, but you can't eat because then you'll look bigger, and we can't sell as many, you know, group photos and all this other bullshit. The promotional photos are going to look bad if you eat up. So everything about your life is controlled, monitored. You don't even get to be your own person. But yeah, Dan Schneider has a laundry list of crazy allegations and a lot of things with anecdotal evidence supporting it. One of the biggest would be Amanda Bynes. She posted something a few years ago on her Twitter, and she only capitalized a few letters. And if you put the capitalized letters, it says Dan did it. But the whole post was like, oh, I can't speak on this because I'm, you know, contractually obligated not to say anything, and I have to be careful who I incriminate. But in the capitalized letters, it said Dan did it. K-pop stars, I feel bad for them too. They also tend to have the craziest fans. Exactly. Their fans expect them to be robots too. Like if they have to cancel a tour date, their fans will literally act like it's the end of their world. BTS, I mean, those guys have got to be the biggest K-pop group on the planet, but that life has got to be miserable. Every second of every day is monitored. All these appearances, talk show appearances, performances, sold out arenas. You know, it's just not, they have to sacrifice their whole life to entertain people, pretty much, is what it comes down to. And I'm sure the gigantic Sony contract they got gives them no leeway. Jeanette gave no shits about keeping him secret in her book. She never said his name, but called him the producer. We all know. Well, the thing about Dan Schneider that's hilarious is he got a golden parachute. You know, Nickelodeon basically sat him down and said, hey, Dan, people are talking about this. What are we going to do? They gave him two options. They said, you're either going to resign, or we're going to fire you, but we're going to pay you a massive, you know, settlement to basically buy out your properties, like all of his shows, which were under his production LLC of Schneider's Bakery, which are Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, Victorious, and what was the fourth one? iCarly was the fourth one. And then Sam and Cat, which that show was fucking horrible anyway, but yeah. And basically they paid him undisclosed amount, probably millions of dollars, and then he just disappeared. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody knows what he's up to nowadays, but he got his golden parachute and he's out. No consequences whatsoever. He won't be appearing in court anytime soon. He won't have to answer for anything that he did. He won't have to answer to anything. He got a couple mil and he's going to go hide out in his fucking Beverly Hills or wherever the hell he lives mansion and just kick it for the next, 30, 40 years. Who knows? Because he just brings in oceans and oceans of money is what it comes down to. His shows were incredibly successful. And like I said, money is the ultimate validation. People are willing to overlook a lot of shit if you bring in money. They're willing to overlook a lot of it. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in the country anymore. Dude probably fucking fled. Why wouldn't he flee? Why wouldn't he fucking flee? Like, You know, there's so not just anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of people, like you said, Jeanette name dropping him as the producer. Well, who was the main producer on her shows? Dan fucking Schneider. So many people have stories about this guy, yet he's never appeared to even say a word about it because he's just in hiding. He probably is in some foreign country hiding out somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe he caught the first flight out of America, sold his house, and just kind of, you know, moved his whole life somewhere else. Who knows? But the point is, because he was bringing in so much money, nobody was willing to reprimand him, talk to him about anything. Nobody cared about the abuse. Nobody cared about the essay that he was doing to his very underage stars of his shows. I mean, we're talking like fucking 13 and 14-year-olds, for God's sake. And all the accusations. I mean, I'm not going to get into it because, for the love of God, that's not really something I need to be going into. But let's just say it's all out there. You can look it up. There's massive threads, lots of videos about it. You can look it up and it's very disturbing. Yes, he was the psycho feet guy, Dr. Red. He had a big foot fetish. He was very blatant about it. And he wrote a bunch of bits into his shows to get his stars, again, underage girls in most cases, to take off their socks and shoes and do weird, like, foot tickling and massaging bits in his shows. He's a fucking weirdo. And they even tweeted some bizarre stuff too. Like they had this picture of Sam and Cat, and they had drawn smiley faces on the bottom of their feed. And he's like, "Oh, everybody retweet this, and also do the same thing that Sam and Cat did in this photo. We'll retweet until our fingers are sore." Smile. Jesus Christ, man, it's fucking disgusting. I kind of hope he's rotting in some cellar, hiding from everyone, but I know he probably isn't. World isn't that fair. Yeah. And, by the way, when Dan Schneider was at his peak, Nickelodeon released the Foot logo, where it was just like a footprint in orange that had the Nickelodeon text inside of it. So, yeah, there's even more circumstantial evidence. It's all over the place. It's not a secret. There was a girl that allegedly posted on a 4chan thread that she was an extra on the Amanda Show in like 1999 or 2000, whenever that show was on. And she said Dan and another big producer paid her $150 to take her into Dan's office and tickle her feet for like 25 minutes. And then they're just like, "Here you go. Here's your money." Like, what? And she's like, "I didn't think anything of it at the time because I just got paid to get complimented and they just did that." And she's like, "Cool, I got extra money." But now that I think back on it, it like makes me sick. And I was like, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, the logo is out there, all kinds of other evidence. But anyways, like I said, I don't want to go too deep into this because that's kind of in a realm that I don't want to. That's a door that I don't want to fully open, even though I kind of already did. But the crazy thing is, a lot of times with these celebrities, and also, you know, you hear about these horrible upbringings. Bella Poarch is another example. Absolutely just destructive, awful childhood. Oh, 100%, Hajime, you're not wrong at all. But yeah, just horrific childhoods, and they'll do anything to get into the industry because they want to basically escape from their hometown. And, you know, I know this is going to sound super easier said than done. And like, I'm just telling people, it's like the whole just buy a house thing, but you can get out of your hometown. If it's a dead end, trust me, my hometown is ripe with opioids and fucking meth labs. And everywhere you turn, there's fucking used needles everywhere from heroin addicts. It is a fucking dead end of a town in the South. It is destruction. It's a horrible place to be. The only notable thing in that town is one university. That's it. And it's not viable. It wasn't viable for us to stay there because that town was such a dead end that there was no career path. There was no way out for us. So we had to bite the bullet. We had to bite the financial bullet big time, and we had to be a little bit destitute for a while. There were times we had to choose between bills and food because we had to move to a bigger city and we had to take that leap. It was the only way we could get the fuck out of there. And we only did it with Tusk's help, which I've, you know, repeated to him many times that it changed our lives for the better. But if you're in a dead end situation, you know, even if you've got to bite the bullet, like start saving, you know, start saving, start planning, start looking at apartments to get somewhere where you know you're going to have more opportunity for your career advancement. Yeah, Snipple. And the sad thing is, you know that I'm telling 100% the truth. Like it's 100% true. You go like 15 minutes away from where I primarily grew up in my hometown, nothing but meth labs. Trailer parks, meth labs. You can't walk when it's dark outside. You'll get shot or mugged or, just rob your money for whatever meth they can get for the day. It's crazy. It is insanity. But yeah, if the conditions in your hometown are not ideal to build your life, you've got to do whatever you can to get out. It's kind of the same principle as if you've got a family member that is just insufferable, or a family member that you just can't build a meaningful relationship with. They're becoming a detriment to your life. You got to cut them out. I know it sucks. I know nobody wants to have to do that, but if it has to be done, it has to be done, regardless of who the person is. Completely. I've got a semi-livable career, but I have to commute a minimum of 90 miles every day because there's just no work locally. There isn't. There really is not. It's a very dead-end town, and it's sad to say it because I love that town and I love some people from it, but I have to be realistic about it. It's not a place that I would want to build a career, and it's not a place I would want to raise a kid. Absolutely not. I would not want to raise a kid there. It's not a good environment. It's not going to garner a strong support structure. It's going to garner fear and having to teach them how to deal with strangers approaching them on the fucking street as they're walking home from school. Crazy shit. It's not a life I would want to raise a kid in whatsoever. And, the problem is a lot of times you can lose your sense of purpose if you live in a town like that long enough. Like, I was there. I was completely directionless. I'm like, I'm 24. I don't know what I want to do. I'm just chilling, working this retail job. I don't know what I want to do. And until Tusk basically shook the fucking cobwebs out of me, I was content to do that for another 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. I was probably just going to dead end myself all the way through my 20s working at this retail job. But then Tusk said to me, like, no, we can move to this bigger city. We can make this work. And we did it. And I made a massive career shift. And nowadays we're doing so much better than we could have ever fathomed. But that risk was really scary. And I think, we just get comfortable. If you've been doing a job for X amount of time, it's comfortable. You know the coworkers, you know what you need to do. Nobody bothers you for the most part. You just come in, you do your shit, and you're good to go. But at a certain point, you have to step out of your comfort zone because you're never going to advance. If you keep, I heard this the other day, so I'm not trying to say this is an original quote, but if you keep choosing the option that's safe 10 out of 10 times, you're never going to get anywhere. Because the only way you can actually advance is to finally choose an option that's not so safe and take a risk. I can't verify if it's a true story, but my old boss used to live in Indianapolis, and she said when her kid was like in 2nd grade, he was offered drugs at school. Yeah. Yeah, our school was not riddled with drugs per se, but it had a lot of kids like drinking and doing dip and a bunch of shit like that when they were way too young to be doing it. And some kids would bring in cigarettes and try to sneak smoke it to be cool. Before they were even 16. Oh, it was? You just didn't see? Okay, true, fair. Snipple went to high school with me, so he knows. He went to middle school with me as well, I believe. Well, at least you do have a company car. A lot of times they don't provide. But yeah, and my town is a major dead end, and I had to get out. I mean, I was dating a girl who was totally involved with the sort of, druggies and the higher form of life type people. And I had to get out of that too. It wasn't easy, but I had to do it. I had to break that shit off and I had to get out of there. And it was the best decision I've ever made. So again, he's heard it 1,000,001 times from me, but I just got to thank Tusk and Bridget as well for being, she's stuck with me through some very, very hard times. So she's a rare one. I'm constantly scared of living in the same place as I have been all my life. I don't want to bounce house to house or anything, but I have to stay in Florida for all my life. I think I'd lose it. This city is a shithole and I need to get out. There's no danger and there's tons of opportunities, but it's just not where I want to be. And you can start online. There's remote work of companies that are headquartered in other states or all the way across the fucking country that you could potentially work at. You just got to get your name out there and start throwing some applications in. Like, remote work is the future, and remote work is bigger now than it's ever been because so many companies sold off their office space during the pandemic because they realized they don't need it. They don't have to spend $10,000 a month on a fucking office if nobody's going to use it. So they saved all that money and they used it to buy, peripherals and mice, keyboards and headsets and monitors for everybody, and they sent them all the fuck home. So just because you don't live in the state where the company is headquartered doesn't mean you can't work for them. You could start working for them and then eventually move. You know, once you get enough money saved up, or if you can, you know, build some momentum, start saving and, you know, make a little bit more than you're making now, you could easily save up for a move. Okay, not easily. It depends on the circumstances, but you get what I mean. There's options if you search for things that are remote. There's always options. And the strategy that I've always gone with in terms of getting hired, I don't have credentials like a lot of other people do. So I have to supplement my lack of credentials with being personable and bringing up and having a strong conversation with the hiring manager. So I don't have credentials per se. I can't compete with people that have a ton of them. But what I can do is I can send an email to the hiring manager, ask them if they can get on camera with me and we can talk, you know, set up just 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, get on camera, have a really meaningful conversation with them, come with a run of different topics I want to go through, things I want to ask about, find something that can be like a through line or an icebreaker. And before you know it, you've just had this great conversation with somebody that's looking to hire a person to add to their team. And you suddenly are at the front. You're at the forefront of that race because nobody else has put in the effort to do that, even if they've got the credentials on paper. So if you can successfully put a face to a name and build a strong first conversation, first relationship with a hiring manager, your chances go up exponentially for getting that job. Even if you think you're totally unqualified. The job I'm working now, I thought I was completely unqualified for, but I've grinded my ass off and I made my way here because I was able to have those icebreaker type conversations and they just went really well. Being sociable and being conversational is the most valuable skill you can have. 100%. 100% it is. You're better than my brother who does have credentials. Nah, don't say that. We don't know that for sure. I don't want to end up like the other people at my school, plateauing early on minor substances, wasting their lives in fast food or gas stations or whatever into their midlife crises. I can't do that shit. But yeah, I've been considering finding an online job after some sort of college classes that may help. Yeah, absolutely. And just take it one step at a time. You know, everybody wants to sprint. They want to immediately get something going and just get out. But it's like, no, sometimes you got to plan out steps and just think about them one battle at a time. You don't have to win the war immediately. You just have to win the battles until you can, you know, declare victory. Whatever. That analogy was horrible, but you get the idea, okay? It may be hard, but I can look at computers forever if I have to. If I can take 10-second breaks looking at my surroundings that aren't gray beaches or crappy weather. Yeah. That's one of the things I've learned in recent years is credentials help, but in a lot of industries, a good portfolio of proof of skills is miles better than credentials. Absolutely. Put a nice resume together, get a really visually appealing template, colorful resume, present everything in a very professional manner, and only put prior job skills that are applicable to the job description you're reading. That's another thing that I've learned. Dude, they have the job description on the website. Copy and paste all of that text and use all the buzzwords in your resume. Completely modify your resume depending on what you're putting in for. If they're constantly using words like, oh, you'll be entering data, well then put skills that you collected at previous jobs that are related to entering data. You know what I mean? Like that's easy. They put the job description there. They're letting you copy. You know, they're essentially letting you copy the homework and submit and get a higher grade. It's totally worth it. My Perfect Resume was a lifesaver, and that was a great suggestion. Exactly. That website is chock full of great templates that you can use and make your resume visually appealing immediately, fill in all the gaps, format it perfectly. So, not sponsored, but that's what I recommend. Let me take a sip of water. I think my throat's going to explode after this episode because we're just having too much fun. And I hope you are too. But the point being, I have absolutely been given and offered opportunities that I otherwise had no business getting, strictly because I was able to break the ice and I was able to get a strong resume together and I was able to communicate with the people in charge of making the decision to pull the trigger on hiring me. It worked out when I guarantee you other people on paper were better applicants. Guaranteed. In fact, I know that they have been in the past. I've been there too, Mag. Yeah, I forgot to cancel your free trial and gave him 40 on accident. You know they bank on that too. They love when people do that. Not sponsored by Resume Templates. Got to save that spot for cool water. Absolutely. And you know what? If you would also like the crisp, refreshing taste of Liquid Death. Okay, just kidding. Not sponsored. Please don't sue me. Liquid Death or whatever your parent company is called. Please don't. Actually working on a website for my resume containing a few different C-based systems related to the subjects they're hiring for. Absolutely. Use as many buzzwords from their job description as you can. Why not? You know, it's just going to, because what that's going to tell them is, whoa, this guy or girl is speaking our language. They're using the same terms that we use, not only on our website, but day to day. You know? Like they're using the same terms we use. They need to be on this team. That's what it's going to tell them at first glance. If they really sit down and read through the resume, they're going to see, damn, this person is a perfect fit. Why aren't they working for us already? We got to pick this person up, you know? But my point is, you can easily lose your sense of purpose if you get stuck in one of those dead-end jobs. So even if something is scary, which it's going to be uncertain, it's going to be scary, you've got to take the leap, because how productive are you going to feel when 2 years have passed by? You're now, 2 years into this just state of limbo that you're in, this state of fucking career purgatory, wishing that you would have done something 2 years ago and you could have already been making progress toward a new career. Don't let that happen. Don't become the person that says, I'll do it tomorrow. Do it. Just start. It's like those people that don't want to start diets because, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. You'll never be ready. You need to just bite the bullet and start. The quicker you start, the quicker you can get to your goals. My supervisor told me how the company uses a program to sort through thousands of apps and throw out so many of them, and it blew my mind. I mean, old news, but crazy. So 100% use those words. Yes, use their words. It's not using their words in a deceptive way, because if you know that you're capable of doing this job, but your credentials may not necessarily reflect it, you're going to have to use other methods. And that's a great method to use. A lot of companies do have these sorting methods that will throw out applications if they don't have enough keywords in them. So, well, what's one way to get the keyword? Copy from their job description. That's probably going to contain some keywords that they like. Use as many words from that job description as you possibly can. Something I didn't realize is just how much more permanent things get when kids are involved. Like, I would gladly take the risk on a career change if it were just me and my wife, but things are different with the little ones. Absolutely. Yeah. And everybody's situation is going to be different. If you've got kids to consider, then you really have to weigh, your options and think about, if my kids are going to want to change schools, if we relocate, how tough is that going to be on them socially? And there's a lot of other things to consider. So obviously you got to weigh your kids' opinions. But if you're by yourself, or it's just you and a significant other, and maybe you don't have a mortgage or kids quite yet, the sky's the limit as far as where you can go. But it just depends on, the amount of freedom and leeway you have to make those decisions. So someone DM'd me after the first episode and asked me why I'm not like posting all over Instagram and Twitter and TikTok that I'm doing these. I probably will, but it's going to be very minor. Kids have opinions. Yeah, sadly they do. But yeah, everybody was asking me why I'm not posting it all over social media. I probably will, but I'll keep it very limited and strictly about, hey, this is live, or just make a quick little post, or maybe I'll take a couple of clips or something like that. If people would actually want to see that type of thing. But I don't know. Social media is one of those things that I feel like I want to distance myself a little bit from. And I know that seems a little counterintuitive considering I'm doing something on the fucking internet. But what I mean is, I know, and everybody else here knows, that those algorithms are designed to push inflammatory, negative, inflammatory, sometimes political shit that you can sometimes get dragged into without the intention of being dragged into. Like, there's been so many creators that get accused of things, and it turns out months later it's not even true. But because people find one personality trait, because you didn't pass the vibe check per se, people are just going to throw some shit out there, and it's just going to snowball because it's going to become a game of fucking Twitter telephone. Yeah, TikTok I'd be okay with, because TikTok, you're just really throwing stuff out there and there's so many eyes on it. But when it comes to Twitter, that's one where I'm probably going to hold off the most. Like, I'm not going to post a ton on there unless it's something completely, just mundane and nothing opinionated for the most part. Honestly, as a content creator, staying active enough on all platforms to stay relevant within the algorithm is a major time commitment. Yeah, exactly. That's why people have social media managers, that once they get successful enough, they pay somebody to post all their shit all day, because otherwise they'd never get a chance to do anything else. Exactly. You just took the words right out of my mouth. You see the use for social media managers now. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be doing the old man talking like the kids. Like, I'm up on Zoomer terminology or whatever, but TikTok is a great way to do it, because some people still they cannot fathom the amount of eyes that are on TikTok. Seriously. You wouldn't mind doing something like that? Like what? Social media management as a career? Or are you talking specifically for my stuff? And especially this recent trend here in the past few years of like debate bro shit. People calling each other out, being like, oh, come on my stream right now where I've got thousands, if not tens of thousands of people watching, and debate me live, where you're immediately going to have all your shit put out there. Probably you're going to get doxxed, and probably you're going to be, everybody's just going to get the pitchforks out because you're challenging their streamer, this, that, and the other. Like, that trend is just so it's just a vicious cycle to me. Yeah, you did. So you actually want to do that for me, Mag? You don't have to like edit TikTok clips. I can do the clipping myself, but yeah, I mean, if you wanted to post some stuff, that'd be fine. But yeah, YouTube Shorts is important as well. YouTube Shorts is very crucial. I've seen creators that, again, hit like the absolute fucking algorithm lottery with YouTube Shorts. Like, there's this guy, I forget what his name is. It's like Pirate Software, I think it is. He's this former Blizzard employee with a really deep voice, and his shorts are just getting shoved into everybody's algorithm right now that watches even gaming adjacent videos. Like, if you've ever watched a video game related video on YouTube, this dude's stuff is getting pushed into your YouTube Shorts algorithm. And he has this super bassy voice. You never know. My old ass would have to figure out how to edit TikTok vids. No, I can do that. It's super easy. I just do it with Premiere, and it fixes the aspect ratio for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so social media is going to be rough, but and also beef. Oh my god, this like Keemstar drama alert social media beef is something that I can't fucking stand, and I would never want to be pulled into. For the most part, and I'm not saying in every scenario, but for the most part, when this happens, the person had it coming. They did some shit that obviously they should have known was going to come up or bite them in the ass later on. Good example is this completionist stuff that's going on right now. Yeah, Keemstar's still around. He runs that influencer boxing company, Happy Punch. I think he's like the CEO or the president of that. Man, I can barely set up a pre-made stream. Can't imagine how hard editing your own videos would be. Well, TikTok has an inbuilt editor. It's actually pretty easy, but you have to import your clips from somewhere else and then get them on your phone because it's easier to edit on your phone. But yeah, it's not that bad. I was able to get a few clips up and watermark them and everything. Plus, I have the Stampede_G name on TikTok, and nobody can take that from me. Motherfuckers! I'm sorry. I got a little emotional there. But yeah, I'll look into doing that and kind of getting some clips out there that I think are, halfway decent. Because, at the end of the day, these are really productive conversations, and I love having them. But it can kind of feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, reporting into a mic sometimes, because they're not necessarily out there. You have to find this very tiny stream to be involved, and I would like to sort of get stuff out there a little bit, and that way people can comment, and there can be even more conversations going on about these types of things. I think it could be really fun and productive as well. So pretty much the last thing I wanted to cover. You may have Stampede G, but do you have Stampede GG, Checkmate streamer? Yeah, somebody's going to make Stampede_GG, and then they're just going to steal my thunder. Pretty much the last major topic I was going to talk about, we've discussed many times on here. but it was never in an actual podcast episode. And it was actually something that Mag told me we should discuss, which I really agree with. And it was basically about the lottery winners, the big game show prize winners, and all the people who seemingly won these just incredible prizes and are just living large, and how they actually turned out to be big curses and basically ruined them financially. I never knew the truth about this until when I was about 14 or 15 or so. This girl who went on to become a G4 host named Allison Hayslip. She used to be like the person that would be in the field when they would do like, E3 coverage and stuff. And she would be on the floor, talking to the game developers and stuff. She posted about how she actually won both showcases on The Price is Right, but she didn't realize that she was responsible for the taxes on it. Allison Hayslip was my childhood crush. I liked her better when she did dark hair later on like the Game Awards and stuff. But yeah, I remember when she had short blonde hair. But yeah, she was cool. And she won both showcases, but she didn't understand until after the show was done recording that she was responsible for the taxes on everything. So she actually ended up having to sell the car that she won to cover the taxes. So she did take like a trip. I think it was like a trip to Hawaii. So she did end up taking that. She said it was great, but the nightmare part of it was trying to get the car sold fast enough, because if you can't cover the taxes, the show just keeps your prizes and they'll just give them out at a later show. So if you've ever wondered why like two shows that are recorded within pretty close proximity of each other, sometimes you'll see the same car. That's why, because the contestant wasn't able to cover the taxes and the show kept it to be given out at a later date. It's fucked up. I never even knew about this. I thought, oh, the person won a car, so they're just given a car and they drive off, no questions asked. But not how it works, because as we all know, somebody's got to make money. And if you as the winner has to be the one that pays, by God, you're going to pay one way or the other. It happens on every game show. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? No, not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but Wheel of Fortune works that way. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is just taxed the same way that we've talked about, lump sum lottery winners, where if you win $1 million, they'll probably tax you like 300,000. So you'll probably walk away with 700, maybe even less nowadays, depending on, the rates. Exactly. Congrats, you won. Now you owe us 10 grand in taxes. You can cover that, right? Pimp My Ride was another example. A lot of the houses, here's the craziest thing about Pimp My Ride, before I talk about what you just posted, Mag, which is also 100% true. A lot of the houses they went to meet the people on Pimp My Ride, when Exhibit would go to their house and pretend to meet them for the first time, that wasn't even their house, because some of them lived in really, downtrodden houses, or they had like a bunch of family members living there. So the show would literally get with a realtor, and they would have the realtor unlock the door to a completely empty house, and then they would stage the whole scene of Exhibit walking up to meet the person. They already knew it was happening. The person was just standing inside of an empty house with no electricity running, just to wait for Exhibit to show up. It was all fake. It was all bullshit. Yeah, sometimes it wasn't even their car, and what they would do is they would focus on the pimp aspect of it. So they would give them like fancy rims and hydraulics and fucking TVs and speakers and shit, but they wouldn't fix what was mechanically wrong with the engine. So the car would still be fucking undrivable. It would just be very beautiful and undrivable, is what it came down to. Mag said, I heard almost everyone who either won a house or had a makeover to where it costs more to upkeep / bigger taxes, insurance, etc. Almost all had to sell the houses because they couldn't afford it. Yeah. Yep, all those extreme home makeover shows. You know what the craziest part is not just the extreme home makeovers. Have you guys ever watched those shows about house hunters? My question is always, how the fuck do these people afford these houses? Because the wife and the husband will be on there looking for a house, okay? And they're like, the wife is like, yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mom and my husband is a school teacher and our budget is $1.5 million. Like, what? Where? And they already live in a house where they're already paying a mortgage. Like, where the fuck did they get that money from? Or it's the other way around. The husband doesn't work and the mom is like a nurse or something and they have $1 million of a budget. Like, what the fuck? Did the producers just give them that? Remember the one reality TV show where it was a wedding or a house? It was started right before COVID and finished somewhere in the beginning or middle of it. Well, I haven't watched TV in many years, so it might have aired when I wasn't watching, but I know like pretty much all the reality shows from my childhood were fake as fuck. Like Flavor of Love on VH1 was complete bullshit. And it actually came out years later that Flavor Flav was dating somebody while that show was shooting. And she didn't like the fact that he was shooting it. And he was basically married to her as well. So like regardless of who won that bullshit show, he wasn't actually going to get with them. It was just all completely manufactured nonsense for TV. Bridget is into watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and I'll admit it's fun to watch, but it's like complete trash entertainment. Even if the show were real, everyone took wedding and they were all screwed. Yeah. That's just the nature of reality TV. I mean, nothing would be... Here's the thing. This is a very simple statement and everybody already knows this, but there's no such thing as reality TV. There's either reality or TV. There's no Venn diagram where those two terms intersect, and there never will be. If you have a reality show, especially that has several seasons, it's like eventually the producers are going to step in and be like, there's not much interesting stuff going on. Let's just fabricate a bunch of bullshit. They did it on Robin Big. They did it on Viva La Bam. They do it on everything because the average person's life, regardless of how rich they are, is not interesting enough that we need to know everything they do every hour of every day. It just isn't. I can't think of a single person whose life is that interesting. Not even billionaires. Because most of the time all they do is like sit on board meetings and make decisions about shit. That's what I'm always thinking on wedding dress shows. Bitches be like, I grow catnip and my fiance breeds lizards. My dress budget is $10,000. Yeah. What I consider the Truman Show reality TV. Well, it definitely predicted the length at which, you know, companies will go. The Truman Show in a lot of ways predicted Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It predicted Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, and basically all of these. There was a Hulk Hogan reality show for a while, which I'm actually wearing some Hulkamaniac shorts, by the way. I know that's so related to what we're talking about. Hulkamaniacs rise up, by the way. There was like a Gene Simmons show. There was a Hulk Hogan show. There was a Travis Barker reality show. Basically, these family-based reality shows, the Truman Show predicted, where a camera crew is with them all day, every day. And they just completely fabricate a bunch of nonsense bullshit to happen. Hogan knows best, absolutely. But yeah, that's the thing. And, you know, the Kardashians made a big deal about their final episode or whatever, and then they just immediately moved to like Hulu or something and just kept it going. They don't know how to exist without camera crews now, fabricating nonsense about their lives, because otherwise they'd just be sitting around eating food and fucking drinking wine all day. What do they have to do? They're all rich as fuck because of like their brand deals and, you know, beauty products and everything. The Jenners are ridiculously rich. They don't have anything interesting going on, so the producers have to fabricate shit every single episode. They have writers for a reason. They've got writers, they've got producers, they've got showrunners, all there to make sure that something is happening so they can get an episode recorded. They could release another tape. Well, they could, but one, I guess, was enough to get the job done. To get the rocket into the air, that was enough. But, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of theories about them, too. I don't want to get too deep into conspiracies, but it's kind of interesting how almost every person they bring into their circle either forgets how to do their job or almost dies. You know? Like, or their careers just have a significant drop off. Not everybody, but a large majority of the people they date just end up like either disappearing or having a big drop off in their career. So there's theories out there like, oh, there's succubus or this, that, or the other. I'm like, well, no, I just think that, you know, they have so much power and influence that crazy shit can happen, you know? They have all that money and still work that show like they can't get more famous or richer at this point, so why keep doing it? Because they don't know what to do with their lives if they don't have a camera crew around them every second of every day. Yeah, the Kardashian effect, they call it. It literally has a term because it's so common now. They start dating a person, that person forgets how to, you know, if it's an NBA player, it's like they forget how to play basketball or they just stop giving a shit. Or they almost die like Lamar Odom did. That dude was literally on his deathbed, for God's sake. He was in like the ICU, barely even alive. You can always get richer. You just can't always spend that wealth. Yeah. I know. Like, imagine growing up in an environment where cameras are around you 24/7 and you can never really be your authentic self. You can't always spend that wealth, not meaningfully at least. Absolutely not. No. I mean, at a certain point, again, we could get into that conversation, but it's like, how much money is enough? Like, they have what, 3 billionaires in that family? I know at least Kylie Jenner is a billionaire. Like, how much net worth do they possibly need to accumulate before they're like, hey, we can slow down and just, live our lives in our big ass mansions? Like, they don't even care about that. They're more concerned about the clout, and they're more concerned about being on camera all the time. But that's the world we live in. It's a very hedonistic world where, attention and clout is like the ultimate currency nowadays. Influence, clout, attention. Those are like the 3 biggest currencies you can have on social media now. And they're the conduit by which you can gain all the net worth and all the assets and everything else. You can do it all just by having enough of a social media presence. You can make everything else happen in your life. And that's why people like Jack Doherty are so successful, because Jack Doherty is not afraid to pump out nothing but 24/7 cringe if it means his channel continues growing. And that's what he does. And he's admitted it. He knows it's cringe as fuck, that all he does is OnlyFans plugs, but that's what he does. And you know what? He's rich as fuck doing it. So he's going to continue doing it for another 10 years, and middle fingers up to the haters, I guess. Well, guys, we just hit the 2-hour mark, or we just hit the 1.5 hour mark. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put the chat back on screen and go ahead with your questions. I've kind of been reading chat the whole time this time around, but if you guys had any questions about what we've talked about or anything you wanted to ask me about either the topics or just questions in general that you might have held off on, feel free to go ahead now. If I had money like that, I'd just want to relax and live, to be able to feel like you just breathe. I can't imagine having something to worry about related to money. Yeah. I can respect those types of people, unapologetically cringe because they know they make bank off it. Yeah, and like, what are they going to do? Listen to the hater that tells them to stop doing it? Why would they? Like I said, money is the ultimate validation. Question, Jill, Rebecca, Claire, or Ada? Jill. Valentine, absolutely. Why is Barney purple? Great question. I have no idea. Speaking of kid shows that are very disturbing, though, check out Teletubbies. What the hell was up with that show? It scared the shit out of me as a kid. Barney had some fire songs, though, I'm not going to lie, about cleaning and various different things. Like I mentioned last time, I've got a very talented artist named Gummy Lotion working on a few new logos. I'm a very big fan of this logo, so we can continue to use this for a couple weeks while she's working on the mock-ups for the new logos. But very soon, we should have much larger, much nicer, and more custom logos that will fill out this space in the bottom right here for the lower third. My kids is obsessed with Teletubbies, but then again, she's all about horror stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah. 4 days in Fetty. Oh my God, Dr. Ed, you can't say that. On a recorded line? You can't say that. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and call it. And I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for listening here to episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to be releasing this on SoundCloud as well. I will post the link. And then I'm also going to be uploading this as a video on my YouTube channel. So this is, we're going to call it on episode 2 here, the most scuffed podcast, quite possibly in the world. But you know what? We're out here getting it done. So I will talk to you guys next Wednesday. Goodbye.